I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. That was not a metaphor. That was Winston Churchill, on the 13th of May 1940, standing in the House of Commons, asking a frightened nation to pay in pain for a future they couldn't see yet. Look at the clock that day. France was collapsing, the skies over Europe were black with uncertainty, and the doors to retreat were swinging open. And yet, he offered the opposite of comfort. He offered a price. Why begin here? Because if you want to lead your life, your team, your family, through a season that feels like 1940, uncertain, loud, and closing in, you must decide right now what you are willing to pay for the outcome you claim you want. But behind that thunderous sentence, there is a quieter truth. Churchill's voice in public is famous. Churchill's voice in private is more useful. Tonight, we step into both. The spotlight of the Commons and the flicker of a desk lamp in a quiet room, where he wrote to the one person who saw him without the armor. We'll follow a thread across a decade and a half, from the humiliation after Gallipoli to the red-stamped war room memos labeled "Action This Day." 3 moments, 1 spine, and out of them, a way to stand your ground in a world that shakes the ground itself. First, that May Day in 1940. He didn't promise ease. He promised friction. Why? Because courage without a bill to pay is just a mood. Churchill understood. Naming the price changes the posture. When you say out loud, "This will cost me," the fear in your chest stops bargaining and starts bracing. And bracing is what keeps you standing when the first wave hits. So imagine your crisis. Your company bleeding cash, your home knotted by conflict, your health demanding habits you've never managed to keep. What if you walked into your own House of Commons, the mirror, and said, without flinching, "I have nothing to offer but early mornings, hard conversations, and promises kept under pressure"? You feel the difference already, don't you? The fog lifts. The path is still uphill, but it is now a path. Churchill's sentence also does something else. It sets the terms of meaning. Pain that surprises you feels like punishment. Pain that you accept as the price of a mission becomes proof that you are on it. When the nights get long, you can point to them and say, "This is the cost I chose." And choice is rocket fuel for stamina. That is lesson 1. Don't hunt for easier roads. Decide on the price and walk the hard one on purpose. But what gave him the right to speak like that? Was that bravado? Or did it come from a wound that taught him what endurance really means? To answer that, we have to walk backward, years before the beaches, before the bombers, before the lion learned to roar for others. We need to step into 1915 to a small room after a public humiliation called Gallipoli. Churchill had driven the plan. It failed catastrophically. Ships lost, lives lost, reputation shattered. He resigned from the Admiralty. The newspapers were not kind. The House was not kind. And at home, he was a husband, writing to Clementine. He didn't posture in those letters. He didn't spin the story. This was the other Church, the one who confessed doubt, shame, and the awful feeling that the story of his life might be closing early. He called his depression the black dog, and it was pacing at his heel. What he did next is both mundane and unbelievable. He went to learn. He picked up brushes and began to paint wild colors against a dark wall. He picked up books, and he wrote and wrote. History, analysis, a new craft of seeing patterns where others saw noise. He did not go silent. He went to school, the night school of failure. He built a daily routine like a scaffold around a broken building. From the outside, it looked like stepping away. From the inside, it was rebuilding foundations. Imagine doing that when your own Gallipoli hits. A failed product launch. A career misstep. A public mistake with your name on it. The temptation is to argue, to rage, or to hide. To slap excuses over fractures. Churchill did something uglier and stronger. He took the hit, then assigned himself homework. He stayed with the mess long enough to extract patterns from it. And when he returned to power, he carried a library in his head and a steadiness in his bones that had been paid for by the worst year of his life. What he meant then still matters now. We idealize the comeback as a montage. There are no montages in real life. There are hours. There are pages. There are small tasks that no one sees, conducted by a person who refuses to let a collapse end the story. That is lesson 2. When you fall, don't perform the recovery. Study it. Turn private pain into private practice until the pain starts teaching. That way, when your new moment arrives, you are not just loud, you are literate in adversity. But imagine if he had chosen the other route. Imagine Churchill doubling down, defending the plan until it crushed him, blaming everyone else while the black dog chewed the room to pieces. It happens every day. Leaders who refuse to learn go from going through hell to living there. The exit is not denial. The exit is study. Now we pivot. From 1915's ashes to the crackling urgency of the war room. The papers on his desk are tagged with a scarlet label. Action this day. Just 4 words. And yet this small repeated phrase rewired the machinery of an entire government. Civil servants moved faster. Commands got sharper. Procrastination had a predator. Look at that phrase and consider its weight. It does not say, action tomorrow or action soon. It leaves no polite escape hatch. It also doesn't say, action forever. It focuses the mind on a single window, now. For Churchill, time was not an ocean. It was a series of doors that close if you wait. When you stamp action this day on a problem, you shrink the time horizon until your brain can't pretend anymore. And that, for most of us, is the difference between a plan and a result. How do you use that without a staff or a private office? You become your own typist and stamp your life. You pick one task each day that actually moves the war inside your world, not 10. 1. You write it on paper, not in a foggy app you'll forget. And you close the day only if that stamp is honored. Watch what happens over a month. The shape of your time will change. Your energy will rally behind clarity. Your anxieties will start to fear you, not the other way around. Lesson 3. Lives here. Urgency is a discipline, not a feeling. You don't wait for the rush. You manufacture it with rules. Action. This day is not a mood, it's a governor on the engine. It stops dithering from stealing outcomes. Consider the triangle we've built. Declare the price, study the failure, constrain the time. Those are not theories. Those are handles. Grab them, and you will feel your posture change in days. Because the truth is, life rarely hands us grand, cinematic moments. It sends a stream of daily chances to keep or break our word, and it is there, down in the unglamorous trenches, where Churchill's lessons bite. But let me ask you something, because it matters whether this stays a story or becomes a shift. What are you willing to pay for the thing you say you want? Where, in your last failure, have you actually learned something sturdy? And which job today, not all of them, just one, deserves a red stamp? If your answer is vague, your results will match it. If your answer is sharp, your results will find you. Now listen to the room again in 1940. Chambers echo. Voices rise. But the power of his words didn't only come from rhetoric. It came from congruence. He had carried disgrace, studied it, and turned it into power. He demanded action from a nation because he had demanded it from himself in the dark. That is why the words landed with such weight. People can smell a leader whose orders and habits match. Here's a smaller, grittier picture. It's late. He's at a desk, the ashtray telling on him, the lamp pooling light in the middle of maps and memos. The labels are ready. The fountain pen scratches. He circles a paragraph. He writes in the margin. He underlines. He fights for clarity on paper so he doesn't have to fight for it in the morning. That is not genius. That is craft. And craft is learnable. If you're still listening, it's because some part of you is ready to pick up that craft. Not tomorrow. Tonight. One page, one plan, one stamp. Here's where these threads tighten. The loudest sentence he ever spoke, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat," is only credible because of a quieter decision in a smaller room years earlier, to rebuild after a fall. And the daily engine that carried him through, action this day, made sure his promise never dissolved into slogans. Price, study, action, 3 gears. Turn them together, and momentum appears. We don't need to romanticize his life to learn from it. He was flawed. He made mistakes big enough to shake continents. But he kept showing up to the workshop of his own discipline. He kept writing. He kept learning. He kept stamping. And the world changed around the pressure of that persistence. So what do we do with this at 11 p.m. in a small apartment, or 6 a.m. in a dull office with stale coffee, or in a kitchen where the dishes argue that nothing ever changes? We do what he did. Make the private moment as serious as the public one. Speak your price. Acknowledge your failure. Assign your task. Close the day when the ink is dry. Before we carry on, I want to hear from you. What's the one failure that taught you the most when you finally sat with it? And what single action this day move are you claiming tonight? Drop it in the comments so someone else sees courage in plain sight. And if this helped you cut through the noise, hit like and subscribe so we can keep building this kind of grit together. Now let me tell you a small detail from those letters to Clementine that often gets ignored. He did not pretend to be invulnerable. He admitted fear. He admitted the black dog. But he didn't give the dog the throne. There's a difference between naming your fear and crowning it. When he wrote, he reduced fear to words on a page. When you trap fear in ink, it stops living in your bloodstream and starts living in sentences you can edit. That is a practical tool. You can do that tonight. 30 minutes, a page about the thing you won't say out loud, write it. Then, like Churchill in his marginalia, circle what matters. Underline the next step. Put the stamp on one line. But what about the people around you? Churchill did not hold the nation together by sheer volume. He created a rhythm others could join. When you start living with declared prices, studied failures, and daily action stamps, you give people around you something to trust. Teams do not trust promises. They trust patterns. Your patterns become their permission to be brave. Think of one person in your orbit. Someone who needs the steadiness you are trying to build. Tell them your price. Tell them your failure and what you learned. Show them your stamp. Do that once a week for 6 weeks. Watch what kind of culture starts to form. Not a culture of perfection. A culture of persistence. And here's the turn that keeps the momentum from rotting into burnout. Churchill understood rest as a tactic. He painted to recover clarity. He read to refill the well. Rest was never a reward. It was a weapon for tomorrow's decisions. If you are burned out, your action this day might be sleep. It might be a walk. It might be a quiet hour with a book that stretches your mind back to size. But even your rest gets the stamp. Why? Because anything you plan becomes part of your discipline. Anything you don't plan becomes prey to your worst impulses. Lesson 4 is hidden here. Recover on purpose. Let's tie this into the moments you dread. Those public conversations where your voice might shake. Those decisions that might get you criticized. You want to know how to walk into them calm? Don't rely on adrenaline. Do the private work. Speak a price that makes the fear honest. Search your last failure for a pattern. Stamp one action that puts your feet on firm ground. When the heat rises, you won't be scrambling for character. You'll be using it. Back in that House of Commons, when Churchill delivered the hard sentence, he didn't ask the nation to be fearless. He asked them to be willing. That's all. Willing to pay, willing to learn, willing to act. Fear hates willingness. Fear thrives on hesitation and negotiation and delayed decisions. Willingness cuts off its oxygen. There's a reason extreme circumstances produce extreme clarity. When the walls press in, only the essentials survive. You don't have to wait for a catastrophe to get that clarity. You can create it by inventing your own constraints. Say out loud, I will not leave this room until this one thing is done. Or, I will not buy peace with silence. I will have the hard conversation by noon. You will be tempted to soften those edges. Don't. The edges are what make the shape. Some of you are thinking, I'm not Churchill. Good. No one is asking you to be. But you are the only person available to lead your day today. You are the only one who can put a price tag on your goals and actually pay it. You are the only one who can choose to treat your pain as a tutor. You are the only one who can stamp the paper and close the day with the ink still wet. We started with a line that sounds like it belongs to statues and documentaries. It belongs on your desk. Because when you strip the ceremony away, that sentence is just a contract. I will exchange my comfort for outcomes. If you make that exchange honestly, the results will follow you like weather follows pressure. But imagine this a year from now. Imagine a small box of note cards on your shelf. Each card is a day. Each day has a stamp. Look back through them. You will see patterns. You will see streaks. You will see the week you almost quit and didn't. That is how quiet courage looks. Not like music swelling and flags waving. Like paper. Like ink. Like kept promises. So, here's the close, short, and severe, as if he were standing in your doorway, cigar in one hand, the other pointing at your desk. He would not flatter you. He would not soothe you. He would tell you the world is dangerous, that fortune is fickle, that people will forget your good days and remember your bad ones, and that you must choose anyway. And then he would push a blank sheet toward you and say, action this day. Speak your price. Study your fall. Stamp your task. Close the night. Repeat. And when your own House of Commons arrives, crowded with noise and eyes and judgment, you will be ready, not because you found an easier road, but because you chose the hard one and walked it with discipline. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. If those are the terms, then let today be the day you finally sign